webinars were designed to be helpful, and born of the feeling that no one thinks that they have all of the answers, but everyone's really keen to hear and share what everyone else is doing, and perhaps together we've all got parts of the answer to share. So I know that in Pencoed you've done a lot of work around your approaches to wellbeing, and that was flagged as an area of strength to us that we're really grateful that you've agreed to share. So it truly is for schools and by schools, and there's an opportunity for us to listen, and perhaps if anyone has any questions at the end, I'm going to speak on your behalf and say that I'm sure you wouldn't mind picking any of those up. So you'll be relieved that I'm going to mute myself and you won't have to listen to me complain about my hair for any longer. And I'll hand over to Pencoed, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Diolch.
Thanks, Louise. Really appreciate that. And I just wanted to say a big thanks for actually having us and inviting us along to record this webinar today. From all at Pencoed Comprehensive School, but especially those members of staff that you'll see now. You'll notice that it's not just one or two members of staff who are presenting today, and that's because it's a massive team ethos, and we've got a fantastic team, a pastoral team at Pencoed Comp, and we've all sort of pulled together through this extremely difficult time to do the best and support our learners in the structures and the things that we've put in place. So without further ado then, my name's Matt Thompson. I'm the Assistant Head and Year 11 Progress and Wellbeing Leader. And I'll ask the other Progress and Wellbeing Leaders, I'll introduce them now, but if they can introduce themselves as they present their sections. So we've got some lovely sections today to show you the different approaches and the different things that we are doing to engage students from our pastoral responsibilities, but also from our well-being responsibilities as well. So I will share the screen now so that you can see the presentation that we've put together as a group. So we've got our virtual learner and wellbeing engagement. So we've got a team of progress and wellbeing leaders here, and today we've got Sharon, Di and Kirsty on this webinar. But to start this, I wanted to give a little bit of a background into Pencoed Comprehensive School, so that those who view this or who are here live with us today have an understanding of where we are within our community as a school and why our systems look the way that they do. So we're a school of just under 950 students. We're very sort of community orientated and community focused. We place a lot of importance on the getting parents involved, as well as having the students involved with staff and the school. So we're very community focused, and our school mantra is aspire. That's ambition, success, perseverance, inspiration, resilience and engagement. And those are the key things that we've tried to focus on, obviously moving into this virtual and remote learning period. One of our targets as our SIP target, school improvement target, is actually to implement a whole school wellbeing program that we've been working on over the last 2 years. And we've got a history of excellent pastoral care that 2 years ago we changed from a vertical system where we had heads of house, and we've moved over to now progress and wellbeing leaders, where we've got a progress and wellbeing leader for each year group. But we've really tried to keep that ethos of having that community spirit within the school and the togetherness with the students, staff, and incorporating parents and outside agencies as well. So I just wanted to mention as well, physically on site, 2 years ago, we introduced what's called the Wellbeing Hub. And that's a hub in school where all the support staff, the pastoral support staff, are based. And it's a central space where students know that that's somewhere safe that they can go if they have an issue or they need support. And we run programs with them in a revolving door system where they'll come onto programs such as ELSA or Thrive, or they'll work with outside agencies so that we can give them the support physically on site, and then they can go back to their learning as they were previously, and we can continue to support them in different ways. So that's what we've got physically on site, and a bit of a background of our school, so that you understand now that the challenge that we then had moving forward was how we replicate that in remote learning, and how do we bring that forward into this period of lockdown and the previous periods of lockdown. And it's been a challenge, and it's also been something that has just been a very steep learning curve, learning from the lockdown that we had in previous years. So our aim was to create a system where all learners felt that they had the same pastoral care and they had those well-being needs met, like they did when they're physically in Pencoed Comprehensive, and attempting to replicate the excellent practice that we have during this period of remote learning. So I want to show you and take a look at what that looks like in practice for us as Pencoed Comprehensive School. So firstly, we've got our wellbeing phone calls that take place every week from the pastoral team, and that incorporates progress and wellbeing leaders, a support member of staff who doesn't have a form group, so supports each progress and wellbeing leader. We've got form tutors, the CLAR coordinator, young carer coordinator, child protection officer, the local authorities early help team. So we're all involved in making contact weekly with students over the phone to check on their well-being and see if there's any further support that we can put in place. And then over this period of lockdown, and from the previous periods of lockdown, we've adapted and developed our structures. And one of those structures is what you see on screen right now. And this has come about from having a structure through Google Classroom. So we've got registration classes. Every single reg will have a registration Google Classroom that the main member of staff is their form tutor, and also have their progress and wellbeing leader within that as well as a staff member. Then we've got overall cohort Google Classrooms where you'll have the progress and wellbeing leader as well as TLR post holders and form tutors, so that announcements and any information can be posted as an overall cohort, as well as then posted out into their individual registration Google Classrooms. And through that system of having those Google Classrooms, we've been able then to develop and adapt a dynamic registration form that you'll see on the screen by here. So each morning, students will load up a Google form that they fill in through their registration classrooms, along with all the other activities and routines that Sharon will come on to after this section of the presentation. And they'll fill in their Google form and they'll tell us some key things. So the first is obviously to tell us that they're there, they're ready, they're up and they're ready to engage with learning. The second thing then is they'll tell us how they're feeling on that day. So we get live feedback every single morning from students about what their mood is on that day and how they're feeling. And then the really nice aspect which has been developed is they're able to give us a message or ask us a question or give us some more information about that daily check-in. So it's really trying to replicate what they'd have when they're in school in those registration classes, but outside of school as well. So we've got some of those messages there, and some of them are quite interesting. We've got I put some on there from when we had the snow days, but you can also see some interesting ones there where the student says, "I'm struggling, trying to catch up on work, and I'm finding it impossible to keep up." So that gives us a clear focus then for form tutors, progress and wellbeing leaders to touch base with those students instantly, either by messaging them through the Google Classroom system or phoning them to have a conversation with them if there's concerns, and offer support and get to the bottom of what we can do to help. And I've put on there as well some attendance figures which don't include Key Stage 3 MLD, and they're quite impressive, and we've been working on these figures really since the start of January around these figures, and they've continued to move along at that pace and at that type of percentage there across all year groups, which we're really proud of and happy that we're able to then identify who's here, who's engaged, who's up, who's ready for learning. And if there's anybody who's not, you can see those trends really easily in the morning. Now, at this point, I need to say, because this has been developed and hasn't just happened overnight, a massive thank you to Ben Johnson, who's our head of maths, who's excellent on the Google Suite, and his knowledge of the Google Sheets and creating this type of dynamic form and Google Sheet has really helped us as a pastoral team have this really streamlined system. So then if students aren't logged in for whatever reason first thing in the morning, we send out supportive texts for them to get in touch with us, to parents, for them to get in touch with us to let us know if there's any issues whatsoever with learning. And then, we found lots of things out through doing that. So for example, issues with devices, issues with family circumstances, and then we can put support in place and we can let staff know, teaching staff know across the school. So we're really happy with the way that we run this system in registration, and Sharon is going to come on to further routines then and things that we do as well on top of this system. So the other thing that I wanted to just highlight is our virtual wellbeing classrooms. Now, this is an idea that came from Sharon and Alex Milton, who's our health and wellbeing coordinator within the school. And the idea was that in school, we really have a focus on wellbeing. We have lots of systems and things in place that happen on site during our registration times, but we wanted to have a focus on creating a virtual wellbeing classroom that students could access at any point. So you'll see there from the image there, that's the Year 7 one, but there's differentiated wellbeing classrooms that Alex Milton has created for us for each year group. And you've got different things on there dependent on their age group. So we've got things about learning how the brain works so that they can understand their feelings and why they're feeling the way that they are. Self-care strategies. There's Netflix there, and you'll see there's a guide to the Headspace from that Netflix link. There's Spotify on there as well. It's got mental health podcasts for children. There's minds.org links on there. So the images that you see on that virtual classroom there link to well-being aspects and things that really support students and give them that area of somewhere to turn to, just like they'd have in school, somewhere to turn to for that extra level of support. So I'm now going to sort of just look at what we've adapted. We've adapted a number of things since the lockdown from last year. We've learned lots of lessons. And one of the things that we did from lockdown last year is frantically get this Google system set up to the point where it's developed to today. Because previously, obviously, we went into lockdown quite quickly. It was very difficult at that point to engage learners, to all get joined because we were trying to do it for remote means. Now, from last year, then we've set those up really, really quickly so that this year, if we had periods of isolation, it was like a seamless transition from year groups going into isolation. They would just move straight over onto our remote pastoral support and pastoral structure like this every morning so that we could support them. And it was just sort of as seamless as it could possibly be if they go out from school to isolation and then come back into school. So we tried to replicate, as you can see, the sort of wraparound pastoral support that we have in school, and we've got issues that can be identified early and easily through our dynamic systems. We are trying to minimize having those invisible children that we speak about in education during this period of time, where they sort of coast and go under the radar. So through our systems and the things that we put in place with this, I think that we've minimized those invisible children, and we can flag them up through the systems that we've got, and then we follow up on that as a pastoral team. In terms of reflection then, the way forward, I think some of this technology and some of the things that we've looked at and implemented, it's something for us to have a discussion then moving forward as a school as to, well, what aspects of this can we blend into our practice when we're back and we're returned full-time to face-to-face learning with our students. And I think that's actually quite something that's quite exciting because students have obviously got used to this technology. Staff have done such a superb job to take all this technology on board, and so much learning has taken place from staff across the school. So it's exciting times in terms of moving forward and hopefully transitioning, fingers crossed, soon to students coming back to school and us using aspects of this then in a blended learning approach from this point on. So without further ado, I'll pass you over then to Sharon, who's a Progress and Wellbeing Leader for Year 7.
Morning. So I'm going to talk to you about our routines, which we put a lot of importance on whilst we're in school face-to-face learning, and we've got some really strong tutor teams, and whilst they're tailored for year groups, we do have specific routines that we carry out each morning during form time. So our aims for distance learning was to try and retain as much as we could the normality, so that the distance learning was less isolating for our pupils. They could still have links with their form tutors and their peers, and then also maintain good habits for learning so that they're in that routine, as Matt talked about the register, and once they're up and running, and then we get them into their form routines, and then that can help them to set them up for the day. It also allows us to monitor the well-being of our pupils. So in practice, After registration, once a week, they will have an assembly, whether that's recorded or moving increasingly to those live assemblies by their PWL. I think we're seeing figures of around 60 to 80 pupils in Key Stage 3 that are attending those live assemblies. Along with that, we've tried to maintain the routines that we have, which again include DACU, which is recorded, posted, and most of the PWLs ask them to have a thoughtful moment. There might be a question to respond to or an activity based around that through the week. In Key Stage 3, we also one morning have a literacy and numeracy challenge. So working with the English and Maths departments to try and think about that. I'm not sure if the examples are on this slide or the next. We also have things such as Tuesday News Day, where they might watch Newsround and have a comment on there in their forms. We have in Key Stage 4 career themes of the week with different subjects. I know that Year 9 have been focusing on options, so they've had different things to work around there. I know Year 11 currently looking at Vote 16. There's Test Yourself Tuesday. It generally involves a quiz on one day of the week, and then they earn points for their houses, and a health and wellbeing task that links to the virtual classroom that you've just seen. So there's lots of things going on to get them engaged. I think quizzes tend to be the most popular across the board, and lots of people answering, competing, wanting their house to win. When we think about our routines and adapting them, we have made some adaptations. Different year groups have requested different things. So I know that in Year 7, for example, they wanted to meet more regularly. We started off meeting every morning, but we've changed that now, and we meet on a Monday after the weekend, and we meet on a Friday, and then their form tutors hold a meeting on a Wednesday. Different year groups have different things. I know Year 11 have extra meets, and they've had lots of regular updates through their form tutors live meetings based around assessment, because that was something that was important to them. I know that Year 9 have a game on a Friday live, such as bingo, to try and meet their needs really, and that's what they've asked for. We also changed from our Monday mood to the registration system you've seen, where we can check on wellbeing daily, because we felt once a week wasn't enough and things change so rapidly at home. So that's been something else we've adapted. Feedback suggests that it does benefit our learners, that they do like it, that they have more contact, they like seeing their peers or listening to their peers or chatting with their peers at the live meetings. It does continue those links so that you don't feel so isolated, and they really are enjoying the fact that we're continuing with the quizzes and the things they would have done. So as far as routines, we think they've been really successful, and we will continue to adapt and respond to support our pupils depending on what they need. And I think that leads us very nicely on to Mr. Owen, who is going to talk about our Pupil Voice.
Josh Sharon, bore da bawb. I'm Dave Owen. I'm Progress and Wellbeing Leader for Year 8, and I'm here to speak to you about Pupil Voice. I'd be 100% confident in stating the Pupil Voice underpins everything that we do here at Pencoed Comprehensive. And if we look at the purpose of Pupil Voice from a global perspective, it does uphold and promotes and reaffirms Article 12 of the UN Rights of the Child, which states that all children have the right to express their views, feelings and wishes in all matters affecting them. And I would say that there's many different factors affecting them at the moment. So therefore, another real aim of Pupil Voice within the school is really to be empathetic and supportive to the numerous and various lockdown factors that are affecting them at the moment. It also closes the learning triangle really of the learners, the carers, and also the school. So that element of support is very strong. That triangle is very strong as well. And also we must remember that the children are why we do this job. They are our most valuable asset, and they have every right to be heard, particularly during these most difficult times. So what it looks like in practice here at Pencoed, if I can refer back to one of the first slides that Matt showed, which was what we now call the dynamic registration form, we are actually picking up Pupil Voice straight away in the morning. We are processing pupil voice and registration with the wellbeing question. It may be informally, but we as a staff then are given an overview then about how everyone is feeling. It can then enable us as progress and wellbeing leaders to prioritise where we provide the support as well. I would state that we were actively pursuing pupil feedback, so we were able to support as well. Some of the vehicles on the grid that you see there, Google Meets. Every Google Classroom has coordinator has a Google Meet code, which is at the top of the classroom. By clicking that and copying and pasting the link, then they're able to really call instant Google Meets with the forms. I know that I've done one in terms of year 8. There was one morning at the start of this particular period of lockdown where I was being bombarded with questions, pardon me. So I just stated, look, give yourselves 15 minutes, go and have your breakfast, go and have a drink, and then we'll meet back in 15 minutes. And I had 56 learners on there. So it's can be scheduled, or it can be done instantly as well, or by the means of communication through the effective means of communication through the Google Classroom. On the grid there, you'll see Flipgrid as well, which is also a feature on Hub, which is a really good vehicle for Pupil Voice. The teacher then can either set the theme for the week, or can ask for pupil feedback, saying how they're feeling. It extends on the mood that they allude to in their morning registration, and they can then use the technology then to give a response to what they want to say. So the accessibility to staff, I'd say, is a real strength. As Matt and Sharon alluded to there, we have a very effective team of staff who've had to adapt very quickly, as well as the learners. We must remember that staff have needed to adapt very quickly as well. And as I stated, pupil feedback, I would say, is actively sought. We also have the formal strands then of pupil voice that are embedded in the school very effectively, such as the form reps and then the student council as well. Matt, if we can go on to the next slide, please. If possible. There you go. So we also have, this can be used in terms of, we have Jamboards. These can also be used either in a pastoral setting or in a subject setting as a plenary as well. And the good thing about this is it enables anonymous feedback as well. Sometimes pupils can succumb to peer pressure or feel uncomfortable in a face-to-face classroom situation where they don't really give the full view of how they're feeling at the moment. So therefore, Jamboard, they can express their feelings anonymously, and it gives us a really forensic overview of how they're feeling at the moment. In terms of adaptations, we have adapted some aspects of school life based on pupil voice. As I stated, we've had to adapt, and I think that we've certainly got it right. We're working with the learners as well. We don't see them as a them and us. They're very much part of the fibre of the school, and we're working very closely with them. So one example is during lockdown 1, Key Stage 3 were working on an online platform called Show My Homework, and then Key Stage 4 were working on Google Classroom. Well, we've unified now so that we've got a one-tier approach now, which is Google Classroom, because there's more memory storage, and it's a much more effective way of submitting work as well. Show My Homework, there were some teething problems with the Show My Homework, so we decided to adopt a whole school approach there, and lots of that was based on pupil voice as well. If you can go to the next slide, please, Matt. On the left-hand side there, you'll see this is a discussion that I had with my year group. We initially, during lockdown 2, we were trying to, after Christmas, we were trying to maintain the 5-lesson approach and trying to keep the normality that we've had from registration permeating then into the whole of the school day. Some learners struggled with that, and we learned quite quickly that there were learners that were struggling with the 5-lesson approach, and that the 3-session approach that we had adapted in lockdown 1 was a bit more flexible and gave them a bit more breathing space. So you'll see here on the left, this is a snapshot of one of the meetings that I had with this was actually the snapshot assembly that I spoke about, or Google Meet that I spoke about earlier on, and you can see the feedback on in the chat there. The question I asked was, did you think that going from 5 lessons to 3 lessons was made it a little bit easier? And you can see that that it was very positive, and all the other year groups did that as well. So we had a whole school response to that. There you see Flipgrid in action on the right there. And that was a very important question that I was asking there. How are you coping? We can use that as a snapshot question. How is everyone feeling at the moment? Or you can use it then to set a theme for the assembly as well. And all the learner has to do then is, having Flipgrid on their phone, press a response, and they send then video responses back. They're always on their phones, and they like sending those responses back as well. Another thing that we have done from Pupil Voice then is we've increased the amount of live lessons and also live assemblies. They like that face-to-face contact, particularly in Key Stage 3, and I know Key Stage 4 as well. It's important that they have that face-to-face contact because learners are obviously starting to feel a little bit anxious about their futures, I guess. So to hear Matt and Ian as Progress and Wellbeing leaders for Key Stage 4, providing them with that information, giving them that face-to-face reassurance rather than just having announcements given to them via text, I'm sure that puts the pupils at ease as well. How has it benefited learners? I would state that it has empowered learners to make decisions themselves without peer pressure. I think we're getting the real picture of how learners feel at the moment, where sometimes they can feel a little bit suppressed in class, possibly, where they might feel uncomfortable in saying exactly how they feel for fear of how their peers might react. Everything obviously is geared towards the feedback is given to the teacher, and they're not following the herd. So as I said, we're getting the real honest feedback as well. I think by the same token then, we're receiving more relevant and pertinent, honest feedback, which enables us then to, if there are real areas that we need to pinpoint and prioritize support, then we can do that. And I think it also gives them enhanced ownership as well, and a greater feeling of feeling appreciated and feeling part of the process as well. And we're a happy band here. I've worked here 25 years now, and I'd say the Pupil Voice now is as strong as it's ever been. And we are embracing the technology and the way of communicating between staff and pupils, and they really do feel empowered to make their own decisions. So the way forward, really, as Matt said, looking at a blended approach in terms of teaching and learning, I think we need to adopt that blended approach as well in terms of pastoral well-being as well, to ensure that we continue to embrace the technology and the developments in technology, and to open up the opportunities for Pupil Voice. I think we're all in agreement that perhaps things are quite hard at the moment, but as I said at the start of the meeting, before the meeting started, I think it's opened up a lot of doors as well. It's opened up a lot of opportunities, and I really do think that the learners do feel appreciated and their voice is heard, and that is exactly what the purpose of this was. So hopefully that gives you a picture then of Pupil Voice. So I'll now hand you on to Kirsty, who's going to speak to you about celebration.
Thanks, Di. So I'm the Progress and Wellbeing Leader for Year 9, and I'm going to talk to you now about celebration. So celebration for us has been about encouraging engagement really in online learning, and then celebrating that really consistent work ethic or outstanding work. So the way that this has changed for us as a school now with remote learning is that we utilise Twitter far more. The majority of our pupils don't necessarily have Twitter, however, lots of our parents and guardians do. So this is a way of us trying to maintain communication and then showcase what is going on across all the subjects and the fantastic work that pupils are producing. For those parents then that are not on Twitter, we obviously make our wellbeing calls, but also subject teachers call home, and we call home to let them know that they are pupil or start of the week. We also utilise then our text system and or emails. For pupils themselves, as Di mentioned, we now all across all year groups use Google Classroom. So whereas if we were in school, we would go into the form classes in the morning and announce who Pupil of the Week was. We now post that on Google Classroom. We also obviously then celebrate Form of the Week, those pupils that have won our assembly tasks or the quizzes, as Sharon said, is one of the most popular. So we find that this motivates pupils, because if they can see that we are celebrating them, and not just their subject teacher, but then their form teacher knows that they're working hard and might also leave a comment, they're motivated then to continue with our work ethic. And also it has a positive knock-on effect, because if some pupils can see that other pupils in their class are having lots of shout outs and lots of celebration online, then it kind of motivates them to try and work up to that level. So the way that we celebrated is more recognition and praise, but we also then can give online certificates, but is mainly just about trying to motivate them and recognise that work that they are doing. And you can see on the screen that there are a couple examples with that. With my year group in particular, we trialled and tested this only with year 9 just to see how it would work. And the reason that we went with year 9 is because we recognised that this is the time where they pick their GCSE options, and there might be less engagement in some of those subjects that they know they're not going to take for GCSE. So the stamp scheme is basically pupils have to earn stamps from their teachers. So staff award stamps for pupils that are working consistently hard or produce a piece of outstanding work. The pupils then take full responsibility for this, and on Google Classroom I've set an assignment up where pupils then submit the evidence. So that could be a screenshot of a teacher telling them that they've been awarded a stamp, or a voice note, and then I keep then a spreadsheet as and when they earn stamps across which subjects. So in order for them to be recognised as a lockdown champion, I set the target that pupils had to earn 6 stamps in a half term. So we're now on our last week of this scheme, and about 480 stamps have been awarded to over 70 pupils. And so far, I think there are about 32 lockdown champions. So it helps me as a progress and wellbeing leader, because I can really then identify the pupils that are working above and beyond and celebrate those. And pupils and parents are really on board, and I have parents emailing me to ask how many stamps their child is on, and it's just a kind of incentive to then celebrate those pupils, as I said, that are working really, really hard. I know in year 11, pupils are encouraged to upload a picture or comment that they've had from another member of staff, so then that their form teachers and PWL can celebrate then the work that they're doing in subjects. I know that Sharon mentioned we are all consistent in what we do, but then obviously we trial and test things in different year groups where we feel that that need is, and then we bring that back to feedback and see if then that would work with other year groups. On to community. So if you could go on to the next slide, please, Matt. Oh, I haven't come off mine. Okay, so with community, we recognise that this lockdown in particular is difficult for lots of pupils and lots of parents and the community that they live in. So one thing that we've really tried to do is to encourage work within the community and then celebrate that on the platforms as mentioned, so Twitter, Google Classrooms, Phone and Home, etc. So some ideas that we've done is that pupils painted pebbles and placed them around the community. And when we were able to come back in school, pupils then have brought those in, and they've been then placed in our wellbeing room. We've worked with Bridgend Food Bank, and pupils donated a vast amount of food that really helped our food bank around Christmas time. Currently, Year 9 are working with a charity and doing a pen pal initiative. So they've been linked up to 33 residents across 7 different care homes, and they are now just submitting their first letter. And prior to this, they sent in pictures and photos and poems just to try and support those people of need that are not seeing people outside of the community. We've done tasks across all of Key Stage 3 in terms of trying to really promote kindness. So pupils I know have big cakes. They've gone and tried to maybe offer support to their neighbours when and if they can, even just making a cup of tea for their parents. I know that pupils, as you can see pictured, one pupil in year 7 shaved her hair off and donated that to Princess Trust. And what we're really trying to promote is kindness and trying to bring a positive to this lockdown, which is difficult for lots and lots of people. And then again, by celebrating it on our platforms, it does have that knock-on effect. And pupils then are more motivated to want to also do something. We find that if we put one post up to say well done to a certain pupil, then lots of people kind of jump on that bandwagon and get involved, which is fantastic then, because it means that we can support lots and lots of different charities and lots of different companies or businesses within our community. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, for us to finish off, as a sort of team, a pastoral team within the school, that when we came together to put something together for this webinar, we actually produced, as a pastoral team, Progress and Wellbeing Leaders, a Google slide with almost 40 slides. So the version that you see there, you can see that we've had to sort of really condense it down, but there's so much going on from such a fantastic team at the school. And, you know, wider than that as well, subject teachers as well, feeding into that, as you've heard from the Progress and Wellbeing Leaders that we've got here today. But I just wanted to say again, thank you very much for having us and allowing us to present our really, you know, our big team effort as a school at Pencoed Comprehensive to you.
Diolch yn fawr iawn to all of you. You've just stolen a bit of my thunder.